Welcome, everybody. Here we are. Another movie club in a brand new setting. Look at that. Wow. Take it in. Everyone drink it in for a second.
Mm-hmm. It's the first thing we've ever filmed on this set.
Yeah, this is really just kind of like, I'm going to get everyone, we're not even going to talk about the movie today. We just want everyone to kind of just soak in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, you soaked it in. Oh.
If you have anything, I mean, I'm choosing not to talk. I'm going to drink it in, but if you guys want to talk about the movie, feel free.
Welcome to Movie Club, everybody. It's a beautiful day here in San Diego, California, and we're talking about a beautiful movie, 1966, The Battle of Algiers. Celebrate good times. Come on.
It's
a celebration. That song's not in the movie, but if it was...
If you play that song to the movie, it lines up. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's kind of like a Dark Side of the Moon
Dark Side of the Moon thing, but it's this song in Celebration.
I do think...
that first clap coincides with police officer getting shot.
Yeah, I do think it was cool kind of seeing the first time you got party rock anthem in a movie soundtrack. Like they finally... I don't know. That was just neat to see the genesis of that. But.
Yeah, I picked this movie this week. It is The Battle of Algiers. Why did I pick this movie? I don't know.
How did you even hear this movie?
Yeah, where did you actually...
I don't know why I picked this movie.
Oh, my God.
Why did I pick this movie?
I'd never heard of it before.
I heard it was good. Just being generally involved in filmmaking, you always hear about certain films, Cinema Paradiso, The Seventh Seal, The Bicycle Thief, Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and, Battle of Algiers was just lumped in with all those classics. It's regarded as a masterpiece, so I said, hey, let's check it out. And check it out we did. Mm-hmm. Oh, did we check it out?
Yeah.
I won't give you my review of the movie yet. We'll save that till the end. But I do remember thinking, man, I must be at least almost done with this movie. And I hit pause, and I was literally 20 minutes in. I was like, oh, my goodness. I have a ways to go still.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
a lot happens in this film.
It does.
It was a dense film. That's what I would say. When I was watching it, I was like, there's a lot going on. I feel like I need a second viewing, which I didn't get because, I got things to do. I got to move on with my life.
You can only have so much fun in one day.
Exactly.
It's a battle of free time.
Now, I assume people out there may not be familiar with this film, so we'll give a quick introduction to it. It was made in 1966. It's a French film. It's actually directed by an Italian director. Oh, what was his name? It was like, it's an Italian name. I can't. Rocco, can I get your expertise?
Giuseppe. No, what
God.
is it? Guillo Pontecorvo.
That's really good.
I don't think it's Guillo. Could be Guillo. I think it's Guillo.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to argue.
The expert,
I'm not going to argue with you.
I'm not going to.
I might say Guillo. I don't know.
You can say whatever you want to say.
Some people consider this part of the French New Wave. Some people consider it part of the Italian neorealism movement. It is essentially a war film about the French occupation of the country of Algeria and the local Algerian resistance, the rebellion to kick the French out. It's kind of like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Except
more fun.
More fun.
With cooler weapons.
Cooler weapons and better robots. It's funny watching this movie. It just seemed like a movie.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Way to start.
This movie seemed to me like I was back in world history class in 10th grade. I felt like I was back there watching this movie. And that doesn't mean it's a bad movie.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that would be shown in history class.
Yes.
So take that for what
it has that sort of value to it, definitely.
But it's a story I knew nothing about.
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
So it was, I really left this movie feeling like I wasn't sure my review on it. I still know I'm going to give it at the end. It's like it was so impressive. The things that they did and like the crowd sizes and everything was like, this is fucking nuts.
Yeah.
This is like an epic.
Yeah. There was really impressive like production in this.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so like that was like mind blowing to me. Even like the explosions and it was just like, damn, dude.
That was the thing I was going to bring up. Just the thing I was most impressed by is there are a lot of explosions in this movie that are not only practical. Well, yeah, of course. What are they doing, CG back then? Of course they're practical. But I mean practical in the sense of like they're blowing shit up with people in the same room.
Right.
Like not just, oh man, in this field somewhere there's a giant explosion. No, I was cracking. It's going to sound like an insult towards the movie, but it really is very impressive. They would do these things that seem dangerous for the actors.
Yeah.
There is one scene, I guess I'm jumping ahead here.
Tell us the scene where you cracked up during Battle of Algiers.
Well,
Lay it
there's
on
a
us.
part where there's people dancing in a club and a real explosion goes off in the club that they're dancing, and they don't cut away like it's in the room. But I must have because I was impressed by it. I rewatched it 20 times. Like, how are they doing that? How do they survive that? And you can see so many extras and actors going.
Oh, really?
As they're dancing,
You're
just
scared.
going.
Oh,
And then it goes up, boom, but you could tell they're waiting for that to happen. And that was just knowing the nuts and bolts of it was cracking me up. That doesn't make it any less impressive. That was a very, I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, so the movie, it follows these revolutionaries, and it's filmed in kind of a documentary style. It's from 1966.
Yeah.
But it's depicting events that happened in the 50s, and it's kind of filmed like a 50s newsreel.
Yeah.
Black and white, handheld camera, kind of like newsreel style editing, and like dates placed on the screen.
Yeah.
It definitely, it's advertised in America specifically saying that there is no documentary footage in this film. I feel like they have to make a point to tell you that.
Yeah.
Because it seems so realistic.
They kinda
Watching
paint
it, I was like, did they just film this event? Like, I really thought they did. I thought they did. So I could see why people back then did.
They really did. That was kind of its most interesting direction in it, is that it really makes you feel like you're on the ground with that. It's that convincing, which I thought was pretty impressive for an old movie.
At the end, there's a tank going up into like the Casbah area. And it's like, there's like hundreds, if not thousands of people there. And it's like, well, this has to be real. Like, they didn't just do this, did they? But I guess they
did it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They did it.
They really, a movie this old trying to do something like that, I really think should have been cornier. And yet somehow they subvert that and it feels real.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, I would say that this is one of the most realistic older movies I've ever seen. Usually when you see a movie that's black and white from the 50s or 60s, it kind of has this dreamlike quality or a soundstage quality.
Yeah.
This movie was filmed on location in Algiers, in the place where the actual battle happened.
Yeah.
They used almost entirely non-professional actors. I think there's one professional actor in the whole movie.
And it's this guy, I believe.
It's this guy right here, Jean Martin.
And he was good.
He was good. But everybody else in the film is just a local from Algiers. And a lot of people in the film were actually people who fought in the real world events. The movie stars, well, it doesn't really star anybody. It's kind of a lot of minor characters. It's an ensemble cast, but one actor in the movie is the guy who wrote the book that the movie was based on and actually fought in this battle himself. So the guy fought the battle, then wrote a book about the battle, and then starred in the movie recreating the battle.
Crazy.
It was crazy. Yeah, like you said, Sean, it's hard to know kind of where you fall. I almost went away from this movie feeling like I'm not smart enough to review this movie.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same.
Yeah.
There's so many there's so much I don't know about world history. There's so much I don't know about political science. And military history that it's hard for me to even form an opinion on this film.
Right.
I mean, is it good? Yeah. I do think it's a masterpiece as far as like filmmaking goes. If you took all the movies ever made and you said a certain percentage of them are quote unquote masterpieces, I would put this in that category. The sheer impressiveness of it being made, the fact that it even exists, I think is really impressive. Kind of what you were saying, the scale of it.
Yeah.
The fact that it is so old but seems so contemporary, the fact that it has thousands of cast members that are all unprofessional,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it seems super real.
Even if you look at the picture behind us, there's thousands of people at this parade that didn't really. That's just like that was just one shot,
Yeah.
and they kept doing stuff like this, and it's just
It's kind of miraculous it exists in the form that it is. It's kind of interesting. Anyway.
I read that they screened this movie for the Pentagon in 2003 before the invasion of Iraq. Basically, like, heads up, this is what we're going into.
wow.
Yeah, check this out. All right, it's just a preview.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what though? Watching it, it really was like shit. This stuff is like what.
Yeah,
This is like
Super relevant.
super relevant.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how relevant it is actually. And it's like, fuck, man. I guess it's been the same techniques and tactics being used.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so the Battle of Algiers. We're going to talk about it today on Movie Club, and then we're going to review it. We're going to give it some popcorn shakes.
Which seems almost offensive to this movie. I don't know why giving this movie popcorn shakes is like, what are we doing?
Well, I think this movie is it's a serious film. It's a dark film. It's cynical. I think I enjoyed it. I think it's definitely one of those movies that it warrants a second watching to form a real opinion on it. And I didn't do that. I only watched it once. But yeah. Anything else you guys want to say before we kind of get into the story of it?
No, let's get into the story because, again, I think most people probably haven't seen this movie.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you want, it's on, I think, what, HBO Max
HBO
or
Max.
something? If you want to check
I
it out.
love the Turner Classic Movies
Yeah.
section of
Me too.
HBO Max. That's like my favorite part of the whole thing.
That bumps HBO Max to me up a lot. It's got the new stuff, but then
Yeah.
the whole library is really cool.
Really nice.
Anyway,
So the movie, like we said, it doesn't really follow a specific main character, but instead it tries to tell the story of the occupation of Algeria by the French army through the lens of a lot of smaller, minor characters. It'll follow a character for a little while, and you'll think like, oh, this must be the main character, but then it'll leave that character and follow another character for a little while. And it kind of bounces back and forth between everybody, and it bounces between characters on either side of the war. I think that the two biggest characters in the film are an Algerian man named Ali Laponte, who is kind of like a thief and common criminal who gets brought into the liberation resistance in Algeria. They follow him mainly. And then the other main character would be this guy, General Mateo, who is leader of the French paratroop corps that is brought in to crush the resistance.
Yeah.
The movie, it does have a plot, but it is more like a series of events. Like we said, it's kind of like a compilation of documentary newsreels strung together.
it's almost like coverage
And
more
it really did a good job of showing an escalation of how you get to, like, at the end, it's like tanks and it's all fucked up. But it starts with this, like, oh, we're going to shoot some guy. And then it just keeps adding and adding and adding. And now we're going to bomb people. Okay, now we're going to, it just keeps escalating.
The movie actually opens kind of with the end of the story. You see the French army kind of like storming through the streets of Algeria through the Casbah, which, by the way, I'd always heard the term rock the Casbah. Is that from this movie?
I thought it was.
Wait, are you serious?
Aren't they in the music video for that song? Aren't they in like kind of this kind of gear?
What the fuck? Are they? I don't know.
Yeah, go watch that music video.
Okay.
But I think they were. I mean, I don't know a lot about the Clash, but I thought it was.
I never knew what the Casbah was. The Casbah is like the citadel in a city.
Yeah.
Kind of like the fortified core. Maybe it's a fortress or a castle, you know, like the inner ward of a city.
The Casbah to me was just a music venue in San Diego that we go to.
Until
That's what
now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it does have the moon and the crescent and the star and the moon. So.
Whoa, deep. They're onto some political stuff there.
Yeah.
So it starts with these paratroopers raiding the Casbah, and they go into an apartment building where they find a couple of freedom fighters kind of like behind a wall, hiding behind a fake wall. And basically it's like the jig is up. You're dead. And then we rewind back to the beginning of the story. Yeah, like you said. And we start following this thief, common criminal named Ali Laponte, who I think is basically, there's a whole political landscape that is already going on in this movie that I was not aware of. Mm-hmm. People out there, you're probably not aware of it either. But apparently the French, in their age of colonization, moved into northern Africa and set up French colonies. And I guess they were in Algeria for 130 years leading up to this movie taking place. Mm-hmm. And then in the 1950s, this battle happened. So it's not even so much that Ali is like something specifically happens to him to make him hate the French. It's just generally they're kind of the occupying force there.
Right.
And they are just oppressing the locals, the Algerians. And so he gets kind of radicalized into joining a liberation movement. And right away, I'm just going to pause right here because this movie, you're watching this and you're like, okay, these are terrorists. Mm-hmm. And that's how it feels watching it in modern day. But I feel like it's hard to watch this movie in a post 9/11 world and not immediately just think of terrorism and everything we've all grown up with and been exposed to.
Yes, it's been our life.
Yeah, with the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and the war on terror. It's hard to separate the two.
Yeah.
But I was reading about this movie that when it came out in the 60s, these characters weren't viewed as terrorists. Mm-hmm. They were viewed as freedom fighters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to say that what they do is justified.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely killing innocent people.
They do a lot of fucked up stuff, but I don't think that like the idea of terrorism was a prevalent thing when this movie came out. And I was actually reading that this movie, it inspired a lot of revolutionaries around the world at the time, and even like a bunch of student protests. It kind of called back to, this was the era of Vietnam. This was, the 1968 race riots in America, the student riots in America in the late 60s, kind of the whole revolutionary spirit of the 60s is the climate in which this movie was created. I did read somewhere that this movie inspired George Lucas to make Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I thought I had heard something like
that's
that too, and
interesting.
it kind of made sense. Yeah.
I do know it's a rumored favorite film of a terrorist, Andres Bader. I don't know who that guy is, but he's a terrorist, and this is his favorite movie.
I don't know who that is either. And this movie also inspired Christopher Nolan to make Dark Knight Rises.
I did hear that too. Yes.
And Dunkirk. So I think Christopher Nolan ranks this as one of his favorite movies. If it inspired two of his films.
Yeah, you would think. Yeah.
Not only inspired, but he required everybody on his cast and crew to watch this movie in preparation for those films.
Oh.
Interesting.
So Ollie is approached to join the what do they call it?
FLN?
The FLN is what they're referred to, which is like the National Freedom Liberation Front or something. The FLN. And to do this, basically he's told this story of, we know an informant on our side has been talking to the French police and giving him information about our whereabouts. We want you to follow one of those police officers and shoot him to prove that you are committed to our cause. And they provide him with a gun to do it. And he goes through with it, but the gun was empty and it was just a test.
Damn.
Oh.
And in the
Hate it when
movie,
that happens.
Ali is he stupidly like gets in front of the cop and he's like, "You're gonna get what's coming to you." And then the cops like chase him. And they're like, "No, you were supposed to shoot him from behind."
Come on, that's like 101. That's like assassination 101.
Yeah, you never reveal. You do it the
Get
cowardly
real.
way.
Yeah.
Be a coward.
Yeah.
I mean, you want it done or not? That's the question.
trying to be all noble. Come on.
We got enough heroes, buddy. All right.
So he proves that he is committed to the cause, and from that point, it's kind of. I mean, this movie's hard to describe.
It is. And also they're talking about like the terrorists, like the FLN, the way that they worked was like it was he literally drew a graph to explain it to the people, therefore us, how it worked. And it was like, you were in charge, you're head of a cell, you had two people below you, and that's all you knew. and you know anyone else, and you got your thing from somebody else, but like you don't know who it was,
And
you give your guys.
Those 2 people have 2 people below them.
Right.
But those 2 people below them only go up to their one person. They don't know anybody else in the group.
Anyone else.
And then the 2 people that they report to you.
Right.
And then you're reporting to one person who is a part of somebody else's 2 people.
So it's like they don't know who they're working with either. And so it's impossible to take them all out, essentially. Like, it's really hard to do that. So this movie is so complicated just by that alone that it's like, and there's like 4 layers on top of that. It's like, oh, this is already fucking dense and confusing.
Derek is always the one that kind of takes the helm on, summarizing the story, kind of putting a whole kind of a thread together in which we can all kind of talk about it. And once I was finishing this, I was like, I don't know how he's going to pull this one off. I really was like, in a sense of pity, like, oh no. Oh.
Yeah. So, what I will say is respectable about this movie, what I actually think is great about this movie, it doesn't feel like it really takes too much of a side. I think it shows both the Algerian side and the French side pretty neutrally. It represents them pretty neutrally.
It kind of makes everyone's the hero and the villain at the same time. And they really do a good job showing that.
Again, it's covering it kind of like the news. I mean, not that the news isn't biased ever, but you know what I mean. It's like it's covering it more than it's getting into the emotional heartbeat of it.
Right.
Yeah.
There are no heroes and villains in this movie, or everybody is a hero and villain in this movie. I really think that this, like you said, it feels like something you would watch in a history class. Mm-hmm. I kind of enjoyed that. I felt like I was learning about the nature of war.
Yeah.
In a way that I had never really been presented to me. Mm-hmm. There is a moment in this movie later on. I'm going to skip way ahead when the French army is having a megaphone and they're just broadcasting stuff over the radio and through the streets trying to talk to the FLN. They don't know where the FLN are, so they're just broadcasting it, hoping the message will get to them. And they kind of say, like, I know you think we're fascists, but we're not. We've been where you are. We fought in the French resistance against the Nazis.
Right.
When the Nazis occupied France, there were freedom fighters there, just common people who took up arms to throw out the occupying force. Now the French soldiers find themselves on the other side of the line. They are the occupying force. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's kind of the main theme of this movie. Mm-hmm. You never know what side you're going to fall on, but you're always going to think your side is right.
Yeah.
And so watching this movie as an American, as somebody who has been, just growing up, always hearing about the war on terror, always having it, told to us as like a necessary thing. This was the first time where I really paused and thought, like, it sucks no matter what. On either side.
We've grown up with we're in the nation of heroes.
Right.
Like wave the flag because we are a country of heroes, and exactly. It paints the picture of you're doing dirty shit no matter what.
Yeah. So what happens in the movie is essentially these freedom fighters just say they want the French to leave. They say the French are occupying our country. They should get out. It's our country. We want it back. We're not mad at French civilians. We're mad at the French authorities. Mm-hmm. And so they start targeting French police officers in Algeria, and they start, attacking them and shooting them and killing them in the streets, essentially. And what happens, what the French government in Algeria does as a retaliation is they just send a bomb into the Casbah and just blow it up.
Yeah.
They're like, you want to fuck with us? Fuck around and find out. Here you go. Kaboom. That's kind of like the first act of the movie, I would say, is Ali getting involved in the FLN, and then this first wave of attacks attempting to throw the French out, and then the French retaliates with this bomb.
Yeah.
In response to the French bombing of the Algerians, this is where they go full, I'm going to say it, terrorist mode. They respond with their own bombings. To me, this was a really interesting part of the movie because they basically have a safe zone in Algeria, an area specifically for Europeans, and the Algerians, who are Muslim, are not allowed to travel freely in and out of this zone. They have to go through checkpoints. I don't think they have metal detectors at the time, but
No.
they have like
They're being
armed,
frisked and stuff,
Yeah,
though.
they're being frisked. They have armed checkpoints. But they realize that the French basically aren't really checking the women.
Right.
So they recruit 3 young women to do 3 separate bombings. One of them goes to the airport, one of them goes to a dance club, one of them goes to an ice cream shop. This is kind of the scene you were talking about.
Yeah.
And this part of the movie is really heavy
Yes.
Yeah.
because you're nervous. You're like,
Yeah.
these women are walking around
Yeah.
with literal ticking time bombs
Yeah.
in their purses.
And it was so hard to watch in every way because it's like, well, I care about these 3 women,
Yeah.
but now they're in this ice cream shop and she's looking at some little kitty in ice cream. I'm like, oh, she's gonna back out.
Yeah.
She's not gonna do this. And then it's like, oh no, she just left that bomb there. Oh fuck. Okay, I guess she did. Okay, and then it's like, well, what am I supposed to feel about this? This is terrible. You know?
Now I want to clarify my earlier comments. When I said I was cracking up,
Okay.
I really got to draw
like
the line.
a kid in an ice cream shop.
I crack up at, we work in production.
Right.
We watch stuff and try to figure out how it's done. I do that constantly. And so I was laughing at, there's clearly actors going in the background going, I know there's an explosive about to go off. Okay. I'm laughing at the production. But see, that shit used to get me in trouble in school because I would do the same thing there. I brought this up a million times, but the movie Lorenzo's Oil, when the kid is decorating the Christmas tree and suddenly has a geyser nosebleed and falls from the Christmas tree, I was laughing at the stunt, like how did they rig that to do it? And everyone's like, wow, he's struggling. And you're just laughing at him. It's like, no. The story is heartbreaking. But I'm laughing at the stunt, So I just want to clarify, there is a difference.
Okay.
You
You
could-
just love that kid dying.
No.
Do you think, honestly, it's a coping mechanism? Do you not like, is
No.
there a reason that, like, an excuse to not get too emotionally involved
No.
in what's going on in
The
the story?
No, the story is heartbreaking, and I'm almost gonna cry, but I'm laughing at, man, they had to.
I'm almost
they
going
had
to cry, but I'm cracking up.
But they had to rig a nose geyser to do, and I'm laughing at that. Like, oh my God, they really did that. I have 2 minds watching any one movie.
Using that double think.
Yeah, I'm too brained,
Yeah, I don't get it.
double brained. I don't know. I had 2 brains watching at the same time.
Oh, I need to be too brained to understand that
Yeah,
sentence.
I got both of them.
So, I don't even know where to go from here.
Popcorn shake, no.
Yeah, so the women, they plant these bombs, and yeah, I feel like a big theme throughout this movie, like we've already said, is no heroes, no villains.
Yeah.
Not really good, not really bad. You're just in a situation that sucks. Obviously, the movie does a good job of making you understand where the Algerians are coming from and feeling like we have to wage a war, but we don't have the capability to do it. They resort to what is known as guerrilla warfare, what we would call in modern day as terrorist attacks. But it's clear that the women doing these bombings, it's weighing heavy on their conscience. Like,
Right.
I feel like I need to do this to free my country. The French have just bombed our part of the city and have killed families,
Right.
but I'm going to kill families right now to like make up for it. And you could just see the weight. You feel the weight when you're watching the movie.
Yeah. I mean, a woman got to the checkpoint because she brought her little son with her to get through, so they wouldn't, they would think that she was up to nothing bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, she's about to kill some kids, and she just left her kid for a second to go do this. Like, that is fucked up. It's fucked up.
To me, the movie really shines with its realism, and I feel like this movie, you can tell, was made by people who lived this experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
In real life.
It shows for sure.
And in the bombing scene, there's 3 bombings, and I feel like in a modern Hollywood movie, it would be like, cocoon, cocoon, kaboom, just cutting between them and showing the
Yeah.
aftermath. In this movie, the first bomb goes off, and the people who are in the location of the second bombing are down the street, and they hear the explosion, and they all run outside, and they're like, what the fuck's going on? And they're scared, but people are like, it's okay. It's just
It's like a propane explosion.
yeah, it must have been an accident. Let's come back in and let's just get back to what we were doing. And it was like, no! And then
Yeah.
that bomb goes off, and then they realize like, oh, this is an attack.
Which honestly, like, brought me back just to like every terrorist attack that like I've witnessed like through this at the like
In person.
9/11
At the zoo, not the zoo, on the news.
on the news, not in person. But like
World's
that
zoo.
first plane hit the first tower, and everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's how the fuck they fucked that up?
it was an accident.
How'd they mess that up?" And it's like, "Oh shit, another one." And then like it hits you. Same with the Boston bombing.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought mostly when I was watching this was like
Didn't feel like it
that
could be
first
intentional.
bomb went off.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah.
And then the second one went off, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're under attack right now." But like,
Yeah.
it takes two for you to figure that out.
Yeah.
And it was just so crazy to see it in this movie from the '60s. Like, oh, I've seen this happen recently.
And this is gonna sound like why you bring this up, but there's a great scene in The Sopranos in the last season. Someone is at dinner with someone else, and the other person gets shot in the head, and it just hangs on the other guy. The guy who doesn't get shot, he's sitting at the table, and you just see blood keeps hitting his face, and he just kind of keeps eating. It almost takes him a while to like. That couldn't have just happened. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like this thing happens. It's almost like you can't let that in for a minute.
Sometimes your brain just freezes. Like it has to catch up to what it's seeing.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about this from like filmmaking perspectives, but you mentioned a minute ago, Derek, about how movies today they would have intercut those things, or they would have, and I also think like, yeah, a movie today also would have had like kind of emotionally manipulative music. You know what I mean? And this, once again, like this movie doesn't do that. Like there is a score in this movie,
Which I fucking loved.
yeah.
For the record.
by Ennio Morricone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
One of the most famous composers of all time. Did Godfather,
Absolutely.
did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
yeah.
He's iconic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They did, but they didn't use that to be emotionally manipulative. Like this, again, this movie is like covering it and not trying to pull you one way, Anyway.
It's realistic.
Thought that was cool,
It's realistic and it's expressionistic. But again, it feels like, somebody went through this and they're bringing their real world experience.
Yeah.
Because it was just such a human reaction of just the disbelief of what's going on, and you don't want to believe it's as bad as it actually is. And you're like fighting reality until it's like, let's face facts. Things are going crazy. After these three bombings happen, that's when they bring in General Mathieu, he's a leader of French paratroopers. I don't know why they specify that it's paratroopers. They don't paratroop into the city.
I think I read the thing that they were in real life used paratroopers, and so they just kept it accurate like
so
that.
that's just what happens. The attacks around the city continue to happen, and so General Mateo and his soldiers basically go into the city and they start clearing the houses, doing block by block, house by house infiltration, just basically knocking on the doors, bringing everybody out and just going through the houses looking for members of the FLN, interrogating people in the FLN, and killing people, arresting people, and generally fighting back against the insurgency. So they do a counterinsurgency. It seems like the Iraq War. This movie is so relevant. Even though it's 60 years old, it feels super modern. It feels, I watch war movies that are made now. I've seen like Zero Dark 30 and The Green Zone and Hurt Locker. But somehow I felt like this movie was more of an education on how things kind of really go down. Like what you said, it's less dramatized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not trying to pull you down one way.
It really
of
wasn't,
feeling
and
about
and like the actors weren't great. Like everything about this movie was like that doesn't matter. This is what happened.
Yeah, that's not what it's about.
It's not what it's about. I'm not gonna get a crazy performance out of this.
It's every bit of Oscar bait removed from it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is what happened, just so there's record of what we went through.
Yeah.
Which, interesting enough, this is one of the few films in history that has been nominated for an Oscar in 2 separate years. It was nominated in 1966 for Best Foreign Film, the year it came out. But then it was nominated again in 1968 for Best Screenplay, Best Director.
What
Crazy.
did it get like a domestic release in that time or something?
I don't know.
Well,
other than to
I've
say,
never heard of
I
that.
know this movie was banned in a lot of countries, and it took a couple of years to actually get screened around the world.
They also like cut out, like when it aired in the U.S., they cut out the torture scenes and some of making like the French look real bad. They cut that stuff out.
Huh.
Yeah. There's a couple of great discussions in this movie that are super thought-provoking. One is Ali talking to his cell leader, and he basically says, like, it's really hard to start a revolution. It's even harder to keep it going, and hardest of all is to win. You know, and it kind of speaks to how they know that they have an impossible task ahead of them, but it's kind of their only option. Like, they have no other option. General Mateo eventually arrests one of the leaders of the FLN, and he brings him in front of the French reporters who are reporting on the battle, and they interview him, and they find that this guy is very intelligent, very articulate. And one of the conversations they have there, they ask him, like, don't you think it's cowardly to send women with bombs and handbaskets to do these explosions? And he says, like, is it any more cowardly than bombing us with napalm from an airplane? And, you know, you give us your airplanes, we'll give you our women with handbaskets. And once again, the movie just kind of raises this question of, is anyone more right here than the other person? Yeah, I mean, it really provides it from both sides. I don't know what else to say on that front.
Yeah.
We're kind of speeding through the movie because this is approaching kind of the end of the film now, and I feel like we've glossed over a lot of. There's a lot of nuance to this movie.
Yeah,
I will say that. I think one of the most artistic things about this movie are all of these little moments that, on the surface, may not appear to be very big, but then they are emotionally really heavy.
Yeah.
After one of the bombings happens in the European section, there's a little boy, a little Arab boy, who's like passing out concessions, and he just starts looking nervous. Like,
Oh, yeah.
oh
Oh,
shit,
fuck, I
I
forgot
gotta get
this
the
part.
fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And then all the adults are like, hey, fucker, where are you going? And they're like, it's not you, but it's someone like you. And they start like beating him up.
Oh god.
And like a French police officer has to like grab him and be like, it's not his fault. He like picks him up and runs away with this boy.
but you,
and
like,
the mob is chasing after them.
You don't know anything else after that. Like, is that kid dead? Is he just knocked out? Like, they don't go back to it. It's just a little section they just showed you, and it's like, oh fuck! Like, it's just nonstop things like that where it's like this
moments.
is so much.
Yeah. So in trying to summarize the plot of this movie, we're burning through it really fast because there's a lot of things that are not like an A to B plot, but there are these just really heavy moments that really make you think about the situation.
Yeah.
So towards the end of the movie, they have an interview with this guy, and again, he's kind of portrayed as the bad guy in the movie, but then in this interview, he explains his logic, and he's just a soldier. He leads a force, and he says, I have a job to do here.
Right.
You may not like how I do this job, but this is the job, you know?
Yeah.
He basically says the conflict comes down to this. The Algerians want the French to leave the country. The French want to stay in the country. That's it.
Right.
There's two opposing forces here, and I am on the side of the French.
Right. And he's like, I'm not even a decision. I'm just a soldier who they told me what to do, and this is what I was told to do.
Yeah.
So.
There's a lot of, you know, we talked about how this inspired a lot. You mentioned the movies and Christopher Nolan and George. There was especially in this part that we're talking about there's a lot of Metal Gear vibe in there too. I feel like that had an imprint on, you know, talking about that kind of stuff. Like, you know, there's a lot in those games about like, I'm not even like emotionally involved in this, but this is what I'm here to do kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, he basically said, he's talking to the French reporters, and they are saying like, well, we don't approve of your tactics. You torture people, you abduct them, they disappear without trial. Are you killing them? And he says, you know what? You want the French to stay in this country? This is what it takes.
Yeah.
Right.
And that, you know, it really kind of hits home this message of, yeah, war sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no good way about it. So after following that, they do capture some FLN members. There are scenes of torture, which suck. They're electrocuting their earlobes. They're dunking their head in water. They're doing flame torture.
The flame
flamethrowers
thing
against their
was like,
stomach.
yo, you really did that though. Like I know it's movie magic a lot of times, but I'm like, well, it didn't cut, and they just put a flame to a guy's chest.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Like, how
Yep.
did you? What the fuck happened here?
Yeah.
I would. I don't know.
I was reading there's one FLN soldier who is like sentenced to death if he won't cooperate. And apparently the director cast him in that role because that actually happened to him in the real
right,
war.
because that's the guy in the very beginning who goes out and gets his head cut off in the very first scene. And then I guess somehow he was sentenced to death in real life, but didn't get killed. But then they recreated that, and they thought it'd be real from him since he knew what it was like.
Jeez.
It's heavy shit.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the movie, the Ollie's cell leader is captured, and I mean, I don't know if he's executed or he's probably executed. Let's be real. They never show what happens to him.
Yeah.
But
No,
eventually,
enough said.
it comes down to Ollie. He's like the last. Ollie LaPonte is the last leader of the resistance out there. And they eventually track him down to a building that he's been hiding in. This is where the movie picks up, where it starts, and then we go back. We've come back to that point now at the end, where he is surrounded by the French paratroopers. I mean, they got 100 guys with machine guns on this building, and they wire the building with explosives, and they basically tell him, like, surrender or we're going to blow you up and kill you. He doesn't surrender, and they blow him up and they kill him.
And the people with him, like the kid, which I got attached to that kid.
Yeah.
And I was sad. I was sad to see that kid get blown up.
I was really thinking, like, this is almost exactly the plot of Star Wars, except at the end, Luke Skywalker doesn't blow up the Death Star. Darth Vader traps him in a house and straps a bomb to the house and says, "Come out, Luke Skywalker, we're going to kill you." And Luke Skywalker puts his arm around a little kid and goes, "We ain't surrendering." Come on!
Yeah.
But there is an epilogue. So after Ollie is killed, who is arguably one of the main characters of the movie, maybe the main character of the movie, you think all is lost. But there is an epilogue that after this, the FLN has been squashed, the resistance has been squashed, it kind of galvanized the people of Algeria, and 2 years later, they took to the streets and rioted and kind of overthrew the French occupation there, and they did get their independence. And it paints it as a positive thing. But, you know, in the real world, that did happen, but there were all these political problems that followed that are not portrayed in the movie. But I guess if this movie is about struggling to get your independence, they do accomplish that.
Yeah.
But all the leaders have to die to inspire that movement to really happen.
It also was something where it's like, okay, so this movie came out in, was it 1966?
Yeah.
And like, according to the movie, I believe they got their independence like 1963. So it's like 3 years later, they made this fucking movie.
Yeah.
So maybe the ramifications haven't even happened yet because
Yeah.
it just happened.
That's
Yeah.
so true. This movie was made less than 5 years after these events actually happened.
Yeah.
To speak to the filmmaking and move away from the story, there are scenes in this that have like thousands of extras. There's
Yeah.
scenes of bombings going off. There's a scene where these FLN guerrillas, we'll call them, they hijack an ambulance and they're driving down the street with a machine gun, just machine gunning people, and then they see a group and they try to crash into them. Lots of, you know, huge epic scenes. There's a scene where the tank is moving through the city, like you said, and the windows are all filled with people. Like
Right.
they would stage scenes that took up the entire city. The camera would pass. There's people on the rooftops, like
Yeah.
miles away, with guns. It was really impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always given chills by scenes in movies where they get a shitload of extras. I don't
Yeah.
just because you know you know how hard that has to be to wrangle that, especially back then. Oh my
Yeah.
God, stuff like that always makes me gasp.
Yeah, I was reading that the director would like go down the street with like a line of chalk and mark out the paths for these groups of people to walk on.
Oh, man.
That this stuff was highly staged. It wasn't just like, all right, action,
Because
go.
But it feels that way.
What a fucking... it's incredible because it's like I watched this thinking, I think they just went down the street in real life and just filmed.
It looks like documentary
It
footage.
looks like they had the actor, okay, you walk down the street and then don't worry about these people. They're just actual people.
Yeah.
And because it looks so real. Like you would not know that this was not all just real with one guy being staged thrown in there.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. And I guess he was just going down with chalk, just
There's
telling these
even a
people what
shot,
to do.
like old movies scare me because they have so little regard for animal life
Yeah,
and human
yeah.
life,
Yep.
really. And there's a scene of like a little kid when they're trying to like, get people out of this building, and this baby is just on the ground, and these soldiers are like walking all over, and they like kind of kick the kid away. And it's like, you really just kicked a little kid. And then like someone like just picks the kid up and like moves him aside and like throws him off. But it's like, that was a real child that what? But like that kind of shit, like, how did you?
Babies are durable, dude. If you really,
that's
you
true.
know.
And as far as the bombings that looked so realistic, I hear that they did build full-size structures out of polyurethane to blow them up.
Well, what I thought, the one thing that I read that I thought was really interesting was the end when they blow that guy up in his house. That was the same spot his actual house was on in real life. The building was still gone because it was blown up. So
Real Ali LaPointe
So they
was blown
built
up there.
his house back to blow it up again.
Oh.
That's fucking.
And like you said,
nuts.
this was only 4 years after the actual battle had ended.
Right.
So, you know, we could assume that those buildings that were blown up had not been rebuilt.
They
So they had space there to do it for this movie. That's the Battle of Algiers.
yeah, I was just like, what the fuck do I rate this movie? Like, I don't even know. I don't know.
I think that before we get into the rating, I also felt like this movie, with everything that was happening in Afghanistan over the course of the past 6 months.
Yeah.
What was happening?
Check out the news. You don't know. Freak
So
out.
the war ended.
Oh,
and,
okay. Oh.
I can't say it enough. Even like everything that happened with the BLM movement last summer, everything you see on the news about like militant, authoritative figures, whether it's actual military soldiers from the army or just cops who are in full like SWAT gear with their shields, just going up against regular people in the street. This movie kind of conjured all of that imagery back into the forefront of the mind, you know?
Yeah.
And it really just made you think about people on both sides. And man, shit's fucked up sometimes.
Yeah.
There's no easy answers. I think that's what this movie is really about at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that people out there, I think this movie is worth watching at least once. At
Yes, I
some
agree.
point in your life. I think, hey, check this movie out. It'll probably make you think about things in a new way.
Yeah.
Yes.
It might not be your favorite movie. It might be hard to get through. You might have to turn it off after 40 minutes. Do it in 3 viewings, but it will make you question some of the things that you'd always held to be like true.
Yeah, that was my struggling with it when it was over. I was like, I can't, I don't know if I would say as a movie if it's my thing.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely looking at things different, like you said. Like, you know what I mean? It does give you a perspective on things. So to me, it's like, well, you can't say that's not valuable.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why it's a hard movie to rate.
I think that this is one of the hardest movies we've ever discussed.
on
Movie
hard to
Club.
review
Because it's almost it's almost not even entertainment. You know?
Yeah.
It really just feels more of like a philosophy.
It was a history lesson.
Yeah.
an education in like the philosophy of war, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what do you be like? Well, 2 popcorn shakes.
2 popcorn
You know,
shakes,
I
you
didn't
know?
like that they blew up the kids in the ice cream parlor.
Yeah. UHF was better.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I'll go first, and I think I'm gonna give it 4 shakers, but with the statement that I will never watch this movie again. I don't think it was incredibly hard to watch, incredibly made.
Yeah.
And I'm not upset that I watched it. It was a story I never knew, and I got to see practically like. I don't know. I feel like I was there watching it. So like it was truly a marvel to see. It was definitely hard to watch. I won't watch it again, but it does get 4 shakers from me.
Yeah. I also give it 4 shakers. And I came into this kind of knowing that I was going to give it 4 shakers. And I feel like it's so unfair for me to my criticism of the movie, why it's not a 5 shaker film, is because it's not entertaining enough to be 5 shakers.
Yeah.
Because it is so heavy to watch, I feel like It's not a perfect film, but I do think it's an important film. You know, I'm glad this movie exists. Even if not everybody in the world watches it, I do think the people who do watch it will get something out of it. It's definitely a movie you're going to remember for a long time.
No movie I've watched from Movie Club has felt more like homework than this one. But that's not a bad thing. It just felt like homework. I don't know.
Yeah, you were learning about a subject you knew nothing about.
Exactly.
Yeah. I will. It's for me. It's like a battle. It's like in my brain. It's like fucking those shots in Dragon Ball Z where Goku is blasting a thing at Vegeta and you see the beam going like against each other.
Yeah.
I've got like you said, is it an entertaining movie? Is it, in that criteria? It's not my thing. But then, it really kind of changes the way you look at certain things. And again, I always give points, as I say, I'm a broken record on this, for the how does this exist factor. The fact that this movie is this old and it doesn't execute any of this in a corny way at all. It actually does it. So I'm gonna give it a 3. I think I'm planted there. It's not the most, you're not going to want to pop this on at any particular time, but you should see it once. You should definitely see it once, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
How they did it.
Yeah, I would put this movie like in school. There's required reading.
Yeah,
I think this movie should be required viewing.
Yeah,
in school, if you're gonna
I agree.
If you're gonna talk about like just war in the 20th century and America's role as like the world police, and we always find ourselves going into foreign countries and trying to institute what we think should be done in that country.
Yeah.
Watch this movie because this will show you a perspective of the people who were already living in that country.
Right.
And the fact that they may not appreciate a foreign nation coming in. For better or worse,
Yeah.
It doesn't say one side is right, one side is wrong. It just says look at it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Which I think is something important that every person in America should probably experience.
Yeah.
Disagree. Anyway, what's the next movie? No, I'm just,
I felt like we've been
I
talking
agree.
about this movie for 20 minutes, and I look at the clock. We've been going for 51 minutes.
It's the opposite of watching the movie, where you feel like
I felt like we didn't say enough about this movie, and I'm like, we've been going for almost an hour.
when you said, all right, we're kind of speeding through this, I was like, we're coming up on an hour, right? When you said that,
That's
I thought it was
wild.
funny.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's very fun. It's more fun to talk about than it is to watch.
that is
Probably.
true.
There are some movies I do feel that way about, though.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw, some people might strike me on this one.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw The Master. Did you guys see The Master? The Paul Thomas Anderson movie?
Yeah. I saw
Years
that,
ago, and I don't really remember much of it.
Yeah, and I didn't dislike it at all. But when I was discussing it with other people, I'm like, I am way more entertained continuing to talk about this than I would popping the movie back in.
Right.
It wasn't the most like fucking entertaining. Wow, whatever. But every now and then there's a movie like that where it's like, I could talk about this forever.
Yeah.
Don't need to watch it again.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So that was the Battle of Algiers. That is this week's episode of Movie Club. Thank you for watching. Check out this movie if you're interested. Next week is Sean's pick?
It's my pick. We're gonna stay in the 60s, everyone.
Okay.
We're gonna pick a movie that I've seen so many times, not that recently, but I've seen this movie at least 20 times in my life. I don't think anyone else I know has seen this movie. It's called Support Your Local Sheriff with James Garner.
I've never even heard of this movie.
Well, we're gonna check it out. We'll see what you think. It is a corny Western from the 60s. So
Okay.
yeah.
I thought we were doing more like spiritual successor to Algiers.
I just thought, you know what, this movie was so heavy. Let's pick something a little lighter.
I was about to yell a cab, but now I'm all cowboys are
ASAP.
ASAP, all sheriffs.
Well, sheriffs are bad. I'm sure that's the plot of this movie.
Yeah, that's what it, yeah.
He's like doing rogue shit.
Well, we'll find out next
Support your
week
local sheriff.
on Movie Club.
asses. All sheriffs are supported. Thank you.
What?
Thank you.